after 100 and something films, I'm constantly insecure, doubting yourself, finding confidence and moving forward, and then doubting what you've just done. I think this is the life of a composer, and I think it's the life of an artist.
Welcome back to Fantasy Picks Movie Edition, Behind the Score. My name is Robert Mota, and with me today I have Adam Gonzales, and I have George. I forgot your last name. God damn it.
It's orange tree. Pretty easy.
What is it?
Naranjo.
Oh,
it means orange tree.
Orange tree. Naranjo. All right, let's try to do this shit again.
It's not important. We don't need it.
So with me today, I have Jorge Naranjo and Adam Gonzales. I think I'm going to leave all that in. Fuck it.
Might as well.
How you guys doing?
Good, man.
All right.
Awesome, man. Welcome back, guys. This is our second podcast on film composers, which we want to kind of bring a spotlight to them since we're such big fans of them. And today we're going to cover Danny Elfman, the great Danny Elfman, which I have to say, man, guy's a badass, a little weird, but a badass.
Oh, yes.
What is your connection to Danny Elfman before we start getting into some of his background and where he comes from and things like that? Where was like the first time that you heard him? And I think I know what everybody's going to say here, which I think that was my exposure to him also. But I'll start with you, Jorge. What was your first encounter with Danny Elfman?
Probably Batman.
Batman.
It's tough because either between that or Nightmare Before Christmas, if I'm thinking about growing up, and,
Right.
like, watching that as a kid. But also, like, I don't know, I kind of watch both simultaneously, to be honest. Like, I feel like I kind of grew up with both of those. If I had to pick one, though, that really stands out for me, it actually is going to be Simpsons, only because when I was taking classes for music and to learn one of my favorite scales, one of their intervals, in order to remember it, they tell you learn the Simpsons theme, and like that's how you remember. Oh, it's this scale, the Lydian scale. So every time I hear that scale, I always think of the Simpsons. So that's the one that really sticks in my mind, though, but more for like music nerd reasons, you know.
It's funny because the one that made me aware of him is going to be Batman 1989. Like that's the one that like I connected the composer with the song.
Right.
Because it just like stuck with me. But I was a big fan of like Pee-wee's Big Adventure and the Beetlejuice movie. But that was like a movie as a whole, not only just the music. But the Batman one was like that's the one that actually made me like, who is Danny Elfman? Like that's the one movie that like brought it out. And then going forward, it was just history from there. Like just every other movie he was part of, I knew it was him because it just you know, and we're gonna get into it, but you know, his tone, his style, his collaborations with Tim Burton, but yeah, I would say Batman 1989 was the definitive Elfman moment for me.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to say the same thing. I mean, that's when I really noticed who Danny Elfman was, because I was not. First of all, I'm not a Pee Wee Herman fan at all. As a matter of fact, I kind of hate the character.
I was.
I
had the toys, the talking couch. I had it all.
I mean, I watched it, but it definitely wasn't like. I mean, I don't know. Like it'd be on, but I don't know if it's something I'd be like, "Mom, Dad, put it on."
I was not. I don't know. I have a thing about what is it? Those kind of kids shows that kind of like downplay. I think I don't know. It's just like those characters just creep me out, and Pee Wee Herman definitely creeped me out, and I just didn't want to see him. So, but I was familiar with the music because you would hear it sometimes in a trailer or something, or it would be on TV. I don't know. I just know that I have heard it, but I didn't connect Danny Elfman to that. I just know that it was, part of that world. And then I think when I heard Batman, that's when I was like, oh, oh. And you know what? In Weird Science, when he did the title theme to Weird Science, I didn't even know that was him too.
Yeah. There was a
So
lot of sleeper movies that until later on I found that it was him. I was like, ah, makes sense now.
yeah. So, but interesting enough, I mean, if we kind of take he started in the band Oingo Boingo,
Mhm.
which was a band in the what 70s or 80s, something like that,
Yeah, like early 70s.
Mhm.
early 70s. And that's where I think he actually did like Weird Science. He did the
Yeah.
right. So I don't think they ever grabbed that. I don't think he ever wrote that song for the movie. I just think they grabbed it for that movie or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but it was pretty cool. I mean, I love that the movie Weird Science. It's just one of those stupid movies that you could just sit down, watch it, and just laugh because it's just ridiculous. But his first big breakout was Pee-wee's Big Adventure with it was with Tim Burton, I believe, right?
Yeah, Tim Burton and Paul
Mm.
Rubens.
Yeah. So Tim Burton and Paul Rubens were actually fans of him. And that's how they kind of approached him. And he thought that he was going to only probably write a song for the movie and didn't realize that he was going to do the entire score. So, which is interesting because sometimes shit like that happens. And it was also like the first time he ever stood in front of an orchestra for the first time to conduct an orchestra or something like that, which was also interesting with, with Danny Elfman. But yeah, Danny Elfman's actually, I mean, I love his work and I think that he has a certain kind of style to him. A lot of it is very whimsical. A lot of it is very, I'm not going to say gothic, but it has
No, it's very. I know what you're saying. It's like I mean, whimsical is a good. It's like fantastical. Like it just it. I don't know. Like he uses so many different instruments, and it literally feels like another world with most of his soundtracks. Like
yeah.
it's I don't know. Like you feel like you're moving through this portal or so. I don't know. It definitely fits every. Even though like he has a certain style, it fits perfectly with every movie he's in, and obviously we'll get into that with some of the songs you're going to cover. But yeah, I agree. It's very. I mean, he's one of those composers that when you hear it, there's like no questioning. Like, oh, Danny Elfman. Like it's a signature sound that I don't think. Honestly, I don't think anybody has that same sound.
Well,
Um,
it's funny you say that because
yeah.
there's an interview that he was doing, and he was talking about how arrogant he was when he was younger, and not only arrogant, but just even combative at moments. And he was just be like, you know what? Because they said that he was saying that for the first 10 years that he was doing uh scores, like other composers hated him because he did things very differently. So his whole thing that was a motivation for him to do these scores even more. But his arrogance was like, you know what? Go fuck yourself. And wait till you hear this shit. You're gonna be copying my ass in a few years. And I was like, wow, that was kind of bold for you to think that. But now that you hear his stuff is just so different than everybody else's that I always thought, oh wow, that's a Danny Elf. But you know what? Do you think you guys could recognize that it's Danny Elfman outside of Tim Burton? Because it seems like whenever he's with Tim Burton, there's just a certain sound that
Um,
starts with him.
I mean, I
That's
think
there.
I think he knows when to give it the Tim Burton twist when it comes to his soundtracks.
Right.
And then the ones that he's not with Tim Burton, I don't know, you still you I mean, I would say the ones with not Tim Burton, they feel a little bit more classical,
Mm-hmm.
a little bit more I don't want to say structured, but they they have a little bit more. I don't know. I
About
don't
the
want to say.
Hollywood sound, I guess, for lack of a better
Yeah,
word.
I mean, I don't want to talk about too many soundtracks this early on, but like Spider-Man, The Simpsons, like they're they're definitely Danny Elfman songs, but
Right.
when you compare it to like Edward Scissorhands or Night Before Christmas, they're very different. But I think that's part of his genius, right? He knows what genre to lean in heavy more. If it's a superhero movie, it sounds more grand. If it's a cartoon, it has that playfulness to it. If it's a
I'd say
Tim
it's like
Burton
quirky.
film, yeah, if it's Tim Burton film, it sounds more gothic. But it's almost like he can have a subgenre to his own style, which it's hard to do, because sometimes a composer will just sound the same in any soundtrack, and that which is also fine, but it doesn't like lean in too heavy into whatever genre or subgenre they're into. I feel like with Danny Elfman, he brings his style, but then he's like, oh, I get to do a gothic version. Oh, I get to do an adventure movie or an action movie. So it's
Right.
almost like it's like he gives himself steroids with his own music. It's
I
Yeah,
like
I
he
can
gives
I can
himself
see that.
genre steroids. You
that.
know,
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know. Like
go
it's
ahead.
tough. Oh, sorry. I was gonna say that like yeah, outside of Tim Burton, I remember like finding out when he did Spider-Man. I was like, wait a minute, that is Danny Elfman. Like there are some things that he
Right.
definitely catches me off guard, and I don't expect it. Um, Same thing with like Men in Black. That was another one of those too, where it's like, oh, that's not Tim. I mean, Danny Elfman. He usually does stuff with Tim Burton. Like, there's no way that like this is him doing the same score here.
mm-hmm.
Um, but like you
You,
said,
you
there's
think
enough of a
so?
quirkiness. But there is like I was gonna say, there's enough of a quirkiness though with the music that it's like okay, like I can
Right.
see it.
Where he threw me off was one, like you said, it was Spider-Man, but also like Mission Impossible also
Oh
threw
yeah,
me off on
Yeah.
that. And there's like
Well,
the wolf.
he was covering Mission Impossible. He took the original theme and then basically updated it, and it sounded
Correct.
great.
It
It sounded
sounds
really
great.
good.
Right, but it's
Um,
not, it's like saying, Hans Zimmer when he did, Mission Impossible, he put
yeah.
his
Oh no,
spin in.
007. Yeah,
Right. Oh, that's right. Double O
yeah.
Seven. But still he put his
yeah,
spin on it,
yeah,
and he just took something that sounded, that was great before and made it even better.
yeah.
I think Danny Elfman did the same thing. But I think, Danny Elfman has said that when it comes to Tim Burton, so the way they, the reason they have stuck so long for so long was because they both have a love for horror films. And basically Tim Burton just lets him kind of be him, and just kind of like some of the stories on some of the music, the way he's collaborated with Tim Burton is kind of crazy on some of them. So, but just to kind of give a little background on him. So Elfman was born like in 1953 in Los Angeles, to a Jewish family. One of the things he said was that when he was and he also got his start in music very late in life, like in high school or in the middle of high school, something like that. Somebody introduced him to classical music, and then it just kind of took off from there. But he was saying that he just, he felt like an outsider because he was Jewish. He also had he has a Russian background. So one of the things is like he couldn't fit with anybody except the artsy people. So kind of sounds like me when I went into high school. But I didn't take up music and I didn't become famous. That being said, he so he kind of got his start there, and then he kind of just also then started after that, a band, and started Oingo Boingo and stuff like that. But like I said, his start was Pee-wee's Big Adventure. And when you hear Pee-wee's Big Adventure, it's interesting because it definitely fits the character, and it definitely fits, I guess, the theme. So Pee-wee's Big Adventure started on TV, if I'm not
Yeah,
correct, right?
yeah.
That is correct.
I'm just here's the thing, because I mean, maybe you guys might know something about that I don't. Adam, you said that you were a fan of Pee-wee's. Was the music in the show on TV the same as in the movie?
You know what? That's a good question. I can't remember if they're one and the same. Um, because if he was brought in
Part of me wants to say
after,
yes, but no, I don't remember either.
yeah, I wonder if he was brought in after. Because if the show was out first,
I'm pretty sure they kept the
then
theme, or they might have done like a play of the theme. Um,
yeah, I'm
but
looking at
I don't think it was something separate.
the credits and I'm not seeing anything with Danny Elfman on here. So maybe he was brought on. Yeah, I definitely don't see him connected with the show itself.
Right.
Um, so and that was released in 1981, the show, whereas the movie was in
1986.
1985. Yeah, well, yeah, it's a
In
1985 American adventure comedy directed by Tim Burton. So it looks like he was only brought on for the actual movie, but now that I'm thinking about it, I'm not really sure if the theme from the show was the same theme that was used in the movie. And I'm sure if it's different, he probably added a lot more, because it's just a movie soundtrack.
right. Because I haven't
Um,
heard anybody say, well, that was a variation of the show.
I mean, and he's the only one that's credited for music for the movie. So
Right.
if there
Mhm.
was someone else who wrote the theme from the show and it carried over, it would have had both their names in the credits.
I would have thought so
Um,
too, but
yeah,
what I'm
so
wondering is if it had the same kind of playfulness. I mean, the one thing we could do is we could listen to it so you could kind of get an idea
yeah,
of that. So this is actually going to be Breakfast Machine. If you listen to it, you can even tell me if that's actually what the show sounds like. So
hmm,
does that sound like anything in the I mean, I think first of all, again, I don't like the character, but I do like this soundtrack because this soundtrack really makes it seem like it's I mean, it's called what? Breakfast Machine, so I think in the movie something
no,
crazy is going on.
it's a different theme song in the show.
Is
So
it
he
really?
came up, yeah. The show is more of like an intro, and he just kind of like says his name over and over again.
Right.
So
Mhm.
he
Yes,
definitely
it is very
created
different.
something very, and they sound completely different. Like
Okay.
besides like maybe like the tempo and the pacing is kind of similar. It's very fast and upbeat, but yeah, the Elfman one sounds like a proper theme song.
Right.
The show one is pretty short. It's only like a minute, and it just sounds like a bunch of kids just saying the word Pee Wee's show over and over again.
Right. Right.
Um,
Okay, so it's
yeah,
just
so he started from scratch. It looks like with this one.
okay. The one thing I like about this is like as you hear it, when you start, if you get familiar with all his soundtracks or his body of work, you could hear where it all came from
Yeah,
because it definitely has that Tim Burtonish uh sound where Tim Burton just told him, "Hey, just do this or do whatever it is that you want to do or something like that." But like I said before, he thought he was just going to do a song for that movie. He didn't know that he was doing the score for that movie, which is kind of crazy. And so it was pretty cool. But yeah, no, that's I listened to it and it sounds great. I just wish I could get into the character. Maybe I should, and I haven't seen this movie, or I saw part of it when it first came out, I think, and I was just like, this thing annoys me.
yeah.
Uh I don't I feel like I should probably watch it again. Maybe I might get an appreciation for it. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I mean, I was a Peter Herman fan, so I'll always enjoy. I had the toys and I watched the show, and especially after the. I think that the funny thing is, I never watched the show before the movie. Once I saw the movie, then I started watching the show, which I think it blew up even bigger because of the movie.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think it continued for like another 4 or 5 years or something like that. But
Right.
it came out like in the early '80s, and then the movie came out in the mid '80s, and then once this movie came out, I guess it just gave it more steam and then I think going forward they used the Elfman theme because it just so
Right.
do you have to like give up your whole weekend to watch the Pee Wee Herman movie and shows? Probably not, but I
No.
would at least watch the movie. It's a good movie of its
You
time.
guys don't do that every weekend? That's what I do.
I was like, you got to give up a whole weekend? How long is this damn movie? Cool, man. I mean, I like I said, I like the sound of it, and I could kind of say, okay, I could see where the roots of, everything he's done comes from, which is pretty cool. His next collaboration with Tim Burton was Beetlejuice, which interesting story about that. So when he did Beetlejuice, first of all, Tim Burton just kind of told him go crazy. And I think the fact that he says himself is like, yeah, nobody was kind of supervising them, so they were like a kid in a candy store, and they just decided to go really nuts. And he even told Tim Burton, "Hey, just let me know when it's too much." But Tim Burton pretty much did not, and he just said that he had probably some of the most fun that he's ever had to let loose in that. And it's funny because he did a rough cut of Beetlejuice first before he even saw the movie, and what he had in his brain and what he saw on the screen were two different things, and he had to restart all over. He's like, nah, what I have is not what it's,
Oh man, I would have loved to hear whatever that version was, or maybe he reused it for a different movie. That would be interesting to see what he came up with. If
It
that's
would
ever
be.
floating
It
around
would.
someplace.
But yeah, no, that's pretty cool. I mean, I'll put it's actually the main title to it. And one of the things I like is so it does start with a little bit of I think it's Harry Belafonte's music, the Banana Boat song. So it starts with a little bit of that because of course that became a big central part of the movie, which was a really funny scene when everybody got possessed and they started
Yeah.
doing the dance. And I'm actually looking forward to the set. You guys know that there's a second part coming
Oh
out,
yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah.
It's gonna be so good.
Yeah, so I'll put that on so you guys can listen to it, but it's actually pretty cool. And the way it starts really cool because it starts that theme song of the Banana Boat song just kind of like very eerie, which is what I like. I don't know if you guys heard, but that still has a similar thing to Pee-wee's.
I was gonna say it's like if Pee Wee was evil, this would be his alter ego. I think that's genius. I think that's great. I think he was like, oh, I did the happy version, but if Pee Wee was, an evil, creature or whatever it is,
Right.
this is like the flip side to that coin. And I think that's
Sick.
great.
Just as silly, but like you said, on the darker side.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's I find it so here's an interesting thing. He liked the movie. The studio had no confidence in this movie. And as a matter of fact, they didn't even want to first of all, they didn't even want his music in it. But he did the music. And the studio did not have confidence in it. They thought it was gonna bomb. So they didn't want to call it Beetlejuice at first. Because they're like, Beetlejuice is too complicated for people to understand. So they wanted to call it Ghost House or something like that. But then in the end, the studio said, fuck it. We don't care. I think this movie's going to bomb anyway. So call it whatever you want. And little did they know that it just fucking became, it became a big success. It's now on Broadway. Now they're doing a second part and it became a big cult favorite for everybody.
It turned into the cartoon show. I watched that pretty religiously.
Oh my gosh, I almost forgot all about that. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Such a
then
great
the
cartoon.
theme carried over, like
Yep.
with the show as well. Yeah, I think this was like this was definitely like the trailer to what Tim Burton and Danny Elfman were pretty much going to do for the rest of their careers together. This was like if you want the blueprint, watch Beetlejuice, and
This was
it'll
it, yeah.
all make sense going forward. It would you're gonna see all the themes, all the tropes, all the styles and the genres. This is the movie that I think that really kickstarted. Like, I mean, not that Pee Wee Herman didn't do it, but I feel like this was the one that Tim Burton probably sat back and said, "Oh yeah, we can keep collaborating, and
Right.
you can keep being my right hand man on this." It's kind of like Christopher Nolan and Hans Zimmer, like how they did a ton of movies together and it just worked. The visuals matched the audio. Uh, this is like I can see this being like that beginning relationship that just started it all, which it did.
Cool.
Yeah, like for me, I think of them as, we kind of get like these circusy type themes, and it just kind of reminds me of like people go to like oddities fairs or something like that. It's like these because you said like they like horror stuff, so I would assume that they like probably like Edgar Allan Poe and like all these other like dark artists, and probably like I said into like oddities and things like that. And so that's probably like where these themes come from, right? You think of like a circus where like like the bearded woman and like the two-headed person, like that's what they're going to be showing, and that's the kind of feeling that they give you with their music, where it's like, okay, we're going to give you this quirky circusy type stuff, to make it fun, but also show that like there's something off here.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. And funny enough, like it's like you said, I think Jorge, you said it. We got our introduction to Danny Elfman with Batman. But this movie came out and I loved this movie and I still didn't know who the fuck Danny Elfman was. So I was just like, I just like the music, but who gives a shit, because whatever,
Yeah.
but it, like I said, it was interesting how even then with such a great soundtrack, I still didn't know who he really was until, of course, the next one, which is Batman. So
Oh, yeah.
I think Batman is where the world really got to know
Mhm.
who Danny Elfman was. And even though he has such a great success, and I think that might be his magnus opus.
Yeah, I mean, well, I'll let you play the song because I have so many great thoughts
Yeah.
on
So
this.
what's interesting
Oh,
about
yeah.
this is like because of this, even though it made him known to, I think, the world, it just didn't. I guess he still wasn't being taken as serious even after this. But there's so much history behind this whole soundtrack, which is really cool.
Okay.
But I'll play it first, and then we could definitely get into it.
Ah, so good. Oh my god.
It's really good when two people say that at the exact same
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. No, it's funny because every time I hear it and that big, I guess, you guys are more into music than I am. Definitely. I don't know if that's a crescendo that comes in, or is that what it's
Yes.
called?
Yeah.
Yep.
When that comes in, even I want to stand up in a very mighty way. Just, it's like I'm ready to tackle the world. Except I'm
Get my
not rich
car
enough.
go 100 miles an hour.
Exactly.
I mean,
So,
if you think about it, before this movie, the only really worldwide memorable superhero theme song was probably Superman with Christopher
correct.
Reeves. So there. I mean, you can't count Adam West. I mean, listen, I love Adam West, but his Batman was for a show. It was very
It's for kids.
poppy Showtime. Like, this was like, okay, we need to make a theme that's equivalent to what Christopher Reeves has brought to the table. And that's like it's the theme of themes. You know,
Yeah.
obviously other people have tackled the theme throughout the years and they sound great, but this theme will always age well. I don't think this theme will never not sound good in any version of Batman that you decide to use. And it's I mean, and he's done other themes later on that we'll cover, but this is just, yeah, I think this is the one that really put him on the map. I think people finally put a name to the song, and I think it's what actually like really like yeah, it just cemented his name like forever. Um, and yeah, it was used how many times, after this? It was used in all the Schumacher films, Batman 1 and 2.
No, it wasn't. And I'll give you a
No?
little story about that. Yeah, it
All right.
wasn't, but it
Well,
was used in the Zack Snyder.
yeah.
Um,
Let's not talk about that movie. No, no, no,
Batman.
no, not
Yeah,
let's not. It's not Zack
Yeah.
Snyder. Let's just say the 2017 Justice League movie, not Zack Snyder's Justice League.
that's true. That's very
But I
true.
will tell you this: I did see that movie in the theater, and I did notice that theme, and I was like, oh, that actually, the theme will always sound cool. So I think no matter what movie, how bad of a movie that movie's in,
Right,
this song will always make that movie just a little bit better because it just exists in that world.
right.
I mean, they brought it back for the Flash too,
Yeah.
Yeah, they brought
and
it
it
back
was
for the
just like,
Flash.
oh, yeah, you got all the feels
Yeah.
when you hear it.
Oh, absolutely.
Even though there's not like that typical circusy theme, when I listen to this theme though, I kind of get the beginning of like a almost like a welcome to the show type thing, right? Like you get
Yeah.
like the slow intro, and I can imagine like this guy kind of like walking you and saying like, oh, like beyond the curtain here lies this great story about this hero, and like I don't know, I get like this really big build up, and then like once you get like that crescendo and it goes right into the theme, that's like almost somebody opening up a curtain, and then you get the show, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So it's like kind of playing off of, like I said, like the circusy or like the showman type thing going on. I mean, if you think about his band and like him being a frontman and his live shows now, like he takes his shirt off, right? He's got his hair all over the place. Like this dude is a showman.
Yeah.
So that's the sense that I'm getting here with this theme. It's like, all right, we're gonna play off of like this, like welcome to the circus, welcome to the show type thing, and then boom, here's a
Right.
theme.
No, absolutely. The one thing I would say is that, like I said, this soundtrack made me notice him, but at the same time, I was like, this is kind of like the Batman I've always wanted, because when you heard about Batman, you say, oh shit, we're getting the Adam West stuff again. And then all of a sudden you hear about Michael Keaton and you're like, what the hell? But then you watch it and you're like, oh, it all goes together. So here's some interesting facts. One, the studio did not want Danny Elfman at all. They just didn't think, they thought that he was more of the comedy composer, because he did, of course, Pee-wee and Beetlejuice. And they didn't think that he can actually do the theme or do the score. And he doesn't, and he himself has said that he doesn't know how to do a presentation, or at least at that time, do a presentation on his score for the studio. So he was doing all these other little things. And then Tim Burton is the one that told him, like, do the theme. And all of a sudden he did the theme. And next thing you know, all the executives and all that stuff is like, oh, hell yes. They definitely like that. Another little interesting fact is that because the studios thought that they were going to probably do more, if it wasn't going to be a score, it was going to be more of a pop song, pop music or something like that. And they were going to have Prince, of course. So they wanted him to collaborate with Prince. And he said, as much as he loves Prince, there is no way that he's going to do that. Because he just basically did not want to all of a sudden feel like he's arranging Prince's music. And so he bowed out. But the studio still called him back and said, you know what? You got the job anyway. which is pretty
Prince
cool.
did do some songs for the
Prince
movie.
did a
but-
lot of songs for the
I was
Yeah,
like,
movie.
he did a lot of movies.
He did
And
a
actually,
lot.
they wanted to get Michael Jackson to be part of the soundtrack as well.
Yes.
And I think Elfman then wound up combining both as like the style on some of the parts. But yeah, like all the orchestrated stuff, that's definitely 1,000% him, and you could totally tell when it's Prince.
Right,
Which-
but they
not
are
knocking that down, but
but
yeah.
there are some Prince, how can I say, little bits of music
Mhm.
in the score, which is just like a little, like a little nod to whatever theme that, Prince came up with. So here's the one thing also Danny says. So Danny says that this was the hard till this day, this was the hardest score he has ever done in his life.
Oh, that's interesting. I would have thought Nightmare Before Christmas would have been crazier.
No, actually, this was it. And so this is a story I wanted to say because you were talking about Schumacher's stuff. Schumacher's Batmans were done by Elliot Goldenthal.
Mm.
I met Elliot Goldenthal when I used to work for Best Buy, and I remember going to his house, and I was we were performing home theater services over there. So I sat down with him and I started talking to him. And I wish I would have had a recorder with me because it was actually very interesting. Him and I was just sitting down talking. I asked him about his movies and stuff like that. So when I asked him about Batman, he himself said it was one of the hardest scores he has ever done. The hardest score he's ever done was the movie Heat, but Batman was hard because he had to deal with so many different Warner Brothers executives, and they had to go through so much scrutiny. And the one thing they wanted was something completely different from Tim Burton. They did not want the Tim Burton stuff in there, which was really interesting too. I was like, really? Because you would think that they're carrying it through, and it was just like, nope. Since Schumacher was involved, he wanted something different. The studio wanted something different, and he had to kind of go by that, which is really interesting on that. So yeah, it just seems like anybody who works on Batman really has a hard time because they have to go through so many different studio executives. The character itself being as iconic as it is, they want to try to get it right. But it's like you said, there's two themes out there that I think will carry for the rest of eternity. John Williams' score for Superman, which we have heard that score in other movies that had nothing to do with John Williams, but it has been in there. And we have heard Tim Burton's Batman in other movies too that have nothing to do with Tim Burton or Danny Elfman. So I think it's so iconic that forever we was, know that this is the definitive Batman theme. So, which is pretty cool. So his next collaboration was again with Tim Burton, and actually before that, I mean, after that he actually did. You guys ever heard of Nightbreed?
No, I haven't seen that one.
No, I've not seen it.
Nightbreed was a movie that I would say it was from a book. You guys have heard of Clive Barker, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so Nightbreed was written by Clive Barker, and it was a book, and they made a movie out of it. Not the best movie there is out there, but he actually did the soundtrack to that. He also did the soundtrack to Dick Tracy.
Classic.
Yep.
Yeah. So, and he did the soundtrack to Darkman. And then from there, his next collaboration was with Tim Burton on Edward Scissorhands, which was also pretty cool. I like Edward Scissorhands. Edward Scissorhands has also his signature style, which I think is really cool. There's a really interesting thing about that because he actually had two theme songs for Edward, and he didn't know which one to do. And Tim Burton just told him, like, use both. He's like,
there we go.
That's not something you do. It is like, yeah, but go ahead and do it.
You do now.
We do now. So what he did was he used both themes depending on what was going on in the scene. So for certain scenes, he'll use one theme, and for the other thing, for other things, he will use the other theme. So it was But I like this music because this music really brings out that whimsical part of what we were talking about, and it's just a very soft and just a nice, but it's still, how can I say, it's still, I don't know, is there
It's magical. It's like a magical.
there we go. I'm gonna say
It's
that
magical, fantastical,
it's
right?
fantastical.
Yeah.
Anything with an
It's what-
ickle at the end. That's what it is.
Popsicle,
Popsicle.
icicle.
I don't know.
Icicle.
There's just, well, you know what? You're right. I mean, there's just something about it. You one time said, Adam, you said John Williams, when he did Harry Potter, that theme sounds like magic. It's the only time that you could say that music has really described magic.
Mhm.
So in this case, Tim Burton does something where he describes the fantastic in these beautiful themes.
Again, you can just keep listening to it. It's so good.
So
So
he
good.
uses a lot of chorus in this one. Like this is where like he really went nuts on this for like with the chorus, and I thought
Yeah.
that was really cool because I think like after that, a lot of his music has that kind of eerie chorus that just kind of describes like the macabre, I guess.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like you said, John Williams knows how to do
that's
magic.
the perfect word for it, macabre. Like you can taste the macabre in this music. Like it's
The
there.
macabre salad.
Yeah, it's macabre salad.
Sorry, I had to do it.
Oh my
Oh
god.
man.
Great. Next song.
I don't know,
That's
man.
right.
If I
End
ever
of segment.
if I ever have a restaurant, I'm gonna have to call the Cobb salad the macabre salad.
Tim
You know
Burton
what?
themed, Danny Elfman themed restaurant called the Macabre Salad.
Yeah.
But it's funny, but it works. Like, like the funny thing is you can hear the song and you can picture the visuals seamlessly with it. Like it's just like you can, like, now when I see that movie, I cannot literally hear it with any other song. Like to me, it would just sound weird. It would not fit. And I feel like like it's like you feel the Edward Scissorhands character with the song itself. And the fact that you said they had two themes, I would have never known that. Like to me, it just sounds like one amazing theme. It's just, yeah. And you could definitely see like his style has been very refined in this soundtrack. Like now it's very Elfman. He's pulling into all of his, like his signature sounds and instruments. And
Right.
yeah, this is like I don't know, it just feels like a very polished up Elfman, even though like he's still very early in his career,
Right.
but his sound is there. Like that's it. Like this is the Danny Elfman sound.
And he said that this is like the simplest song or the simplest
Yeah.
time he's ever had, it was just easy.
Yeah, I'm curious if the second theme was like the chorus, the voices, and then they just like found a way to put it on top of the other. I'm very
I'm not sure because I don't know if
Curious.
I don't know. From what I heard was, or from what he says, is that he used both themes, but I don't think he used them at the same time in one track.
Oh, got it. Okay.
I think he just had one, like he had two different versions for Edward's theme, let's say, and one was this and the other one was this, and Tim Burton just told him, hey, use both. So I think he used them depending on the scene itself.
Got it. Okay. That makes more sense.
One scene will have like, hey, this is a theme I came up with him, and then the other scene just kind of called for the other one or something like that, but they were both Edward's theme or something like that. So
Gosh.
it's actually very interesting. But he said that he had like the greatest time doing this one score, and it was just like the simplest experience to the score that that he did. I like this movie a lot. I think I like the this is also very Tim Burton, where because Tim Burton of course has his own signature style in filmmaking, and I feel like this, whenever he has to deal with anything that's kind of like, again, we're going to the macabre salad, whenever he has something to do with that, there's a certain look to his films that scream Tim Burton. I mean, you see it in Wednesday. So you guys have seen the Wednesday
Mhm.
on Netflix? Yeah. So you see it on that. You see it on the Addams Family. You see it on all these. Well, the Addams Family wasn't him, but that kind of style, there's something about that kind of style that kind of translates to everything that he does.
I mean,
Which is
it
kinda
makes
cool.
sense because when you look at Tim Burton films, they have that certain quirkiness to it where, like, yeah, it's
Correct.
leaning into the horror, but sometimes there's a little bit of comedy, there's a little bit of drama, so it has like these mini subgenres to it, and the music fits it perfectly. The music is just as quirky, but as dark and as sad as
Right.
the movie is. And I think that's why he just kept collaborating with him, because it's like, oh yeah, we're riding the same train right now.
Correct.
You're providing the tracks and I'm providing the cart, and it's just, yeah. This is, I mean, obviously, like, this is
And we're
going to
just
be
going
like,
along for the ride.
yeah.
Mhm.
And honestly, like, and then if you look, I mean, it just fits. And then obviously, like, this one has a lot more like romanticism in this movie. There's more drama. There's more sadness, compared to like Beetlejuice, where it's just like over the top, and there's a lot more adult humor and stuff like that. Edward Scissorhands is probably like, oh, we're doing, obviously it has like funny moments and comedic stuff, but
Right.
for the most part, it's a really sad story, and now you're leaning into like the heartstrings, of people, and the music does it really, especially like that ice dance scene where she's like
Mhm.
dancing in the snow, or like when he's when the snow's falling down, and that's part of my favorite song in the soundtrack.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, he's definitely leaning heavy now into his, just, I don't know, he's pulling all the stops for this one, and you can hear it perfectly.
Yeah. Did you know this movie did not test very well?
Yeah.
Because they didn't have the music.
Wow.
So if
It
you
just goes to
watch
show
this
you.
movie, let's say if you watch
Oh,
this movie
interesting.
without the soundtrack, this movie doesn't grab you as much as with the soundtrack. So,
Yeah.
and I think that's what it was. Like when they tested the whole thing, they were testing it. It just, people just didn't grab to it. As a matter of fact, they felt bad. One guy got up, according to Danny Elfman, one guy got up and said that he felt bad for the Anthony Michael Hall character, who was the bully.
Who's the bully?
I was like, holy
funny.
crap. So it's I've always said, man, music definitely makes a movie, and sometimes can make or break a movie, or just sets the tone of a movie so great that when you put the theme back in, I just imagine that it's like, oh, this is a completely different movie now. After Edward Scissorhands, he did one called Article 99, which I have never heard of. That was in 1992. And then he did Batman Returns, which of course had a lot of the themes as the original Batman 89. And then in 93, he did one called Summersby, which I never heard of either. But then again, he goes back to Tim Burton for Nightmare Before Christmas. And what's interesting about Nightmare Before Christmas is that he didn't know how to approach it, because Tim Burton and him have never done a musical. And they were like, I don't know how we're going to fucking do this. so,
Now,
so
to also point out, the story was written by Tim Burton and produced by Tim Burton, but it was directed by Henry Selick, which no one ever puts two and together. They just think it's a Tim. I mean, it's at heart, it's a Tim Burton movie.
right.
But I bet you if you ask anybody who directed Night Before Christmas, they're going to say Tim Burton. It wasn't Tim Burton. It was Henry Selick who directed it.
That
Just got to
is
put it
very.
out there because you got to
Yeah.
give credit where credit's due.
Here's another thing about, and I think it was about Nightmare, if I'm not mistaken, or it could have been one of the others. So I apologize for everybody out there, but he was on a plane on a 747 and he was trying. Oh, it was for Batman. So I'm gonna go back to Batman. I'm sorry. For Batman, the main theme came up in an airplane on a 747. And the problem was that he had no way, he didn't have anything to write notes on, or he didn't have anything to like, probably write, or have like, write music. And he had a recorder, like like a little tape recorder.
Yeah.
But he didn't want to start humming the theme. So he would go to the bathroom and he would do all his humming and everything in the bathroom. And he did that like 5 times where he was saying that the flight attendant was like, "Are you okay, sir?" He's like, "No, I'm totally fine." But he was doing all his recording in the bathroom of an airplane, which I
Wow.
find funny. And we'll go back to that because he did something almost similar for another track later on. But I had to mention it because he's done that a lot where he just gets inspired and he's not in the studio. He's just probably doing something. And that's where he all of a sudden finds that theme. But for Edward Scissorhands, also, he recorded all the vocals. I don't know if you guys know that.
Yeah, he provided the singing.
Mm-hmm.
For everybody except Sally.
Wow. Okay, that's crazy. I know he did some of the characters. I didn't realize he did all the characters.
For everybody. And guess what? He recorded it all in one day.
That I did not know. I know that he did a lot of the singing. I did not know he did it all in one day.
Wait,
All
did he
in
do-
one day,
Did he
man.
do Oogie Boogie as well?
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy because that sounds like a completely different person.
But they did
Wow.
all the musical. They recorded all the vocals in one night, and Danny did all the vocals except Sally. That's what I remember. But yeah, but they didn't know how to fucking do this, and all of a sudden they just kind of came up with stuff and did it all in one day.
Let's see, did Catherine O'Hara actually sing? Because I know she did the voice.
Not sure.
I forget who sang.
Not sure. That's a good question. I mean, I don't know if he did all the. I mean, I don't know if he did the female voices. I'm sure he has that kind of range.
No, I don't think he did the female voices. I know. I just don't know who actually did her voice.
Well, there's
I
other
forgot.
people. Well, it shows like it shows other people. Like it shows Paul Rubens, Catherine O'Hara, Kidnapped Sandy Claus, and Danny Elfman. So I think anytime there's a female character, there's somebody else.
Right.
For the most part, I'm mainly seeing his name on every single part. Yeah,
Which
Which
is
is
nuts.
insane.
but no, for Oogie Boogie song, he did not sing that. It's a guy named
Oh, he
Ken
did?
Page. Ken
Okay.
Page and Ed
Yeah.
Ivory. I was gonna say, I was like, that'll be really impressive because this sounds nothing like him. But yeah, but I'm looking at the rest of the soundtrack. It's all him, and it's great. I mean, it's so. I mean, I know you're gonna play right now, but it's just, oh man, just so many good feels with this movie, and it's the music. The music is what makes the movie,
Yeah.
like heavily.
And what's funny is that because he didn't know what this movie was about, or he was like, he sat with Tim and he goes, "Well, tell you what, why don't you read this to me? Like if you're actually telling me a story." And that's how he kind of got the feel for what he had to do or something like that, which was interesting. It's always interesting how people collaborate when it comes to music or anything that's actually some kind of, artistic medium where that collaboration, depending on how you approach it, depends on how, what comes out at the other end, but which is kind of cool. But I'll play the honestly, it's probably the most famous song from this, from The Nightmare Before Christmas, which is This Is Halloween.
Boys and girls of every age, wouldn't you like to see something strange? Come with us and you will see. This our town of Halloween. This is Halloween. This is Halloween. Pumpkins scream in the dead of night. This is Halloween. Everybody make a scene. Trick or treat. Tell the neighbors gonna die of fright.
It's interesting how all those vocals, like a lot of them, you could tell that is his, but like you were saying, some of those female ones, like there's a female voice in there,
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, is that him? Because if it is, that's crazy.
I mean, maybe he's using like vocoders or something to like, modulate his voice a little bit to do it. But I'm more
Could be.
impressed with the layering of melodies, and it's just crazy like how full it sounds. And it sounds like there's so many other people when it's probably just him and maybe one other person.
Yeah, probably
It's-
him and maybe like two other people, three at most, but
Yeah.
definitely no more.
Right.
I
No,
mean,
that is crazy. I mean, and the other famous one out of there is I think it's called What's This?
what's
or
this? Yeah,
yeah, What's This?
is
Mhm.
I mean, honestly, every song is iconic. It's hard for musicals to really make it, especially if it's a animated musical, because this isn't really for kids. Like you could watch it as a kid, but it's almost like maybe like older teenager and then up is probably a little bit more appropriate. So this is this on face value, this is a very niche movie because it's like musical. It's it has a little bit of a horror element, but it has a little bit of Christmas, but it's like one of those like perfect storms. And to me, honestly, I mean, I know like Batman is probably like his most iconic, but I think cumulatively, I think this is, in my opinion, this is his best work because it's every single song is memorable in the whole
Right.
soundtrack. I know all the songs from this whole movie. It's yeah, and that's really hard because you're talking about songs with lyrics and melodies and choruses and hooks um and never fails every Christmas. And they're so smart. This is a Christmas and Halloween movie. Like you're getting a double whammy out of this. You're getting so much residuals over 3 months between October through the end of December.
Yeah, I remember somebody asked me, "Is it Chris? Do you watch it for Christmas? Or do you watch it for Halloween?" I said both.
Both, yeah.
Yeah,
Watch it for
Like,
that's
both.
what do you
exactly-
mean? What? What kind of question is that? It's both.
It's
It
the
actually
only
counts for
movie that
both.
transcends across all three holidays: Halloween into Thanksgiving into Christmas.
Was there a Thanksgiving theme in here somewhere?
No, but when he's in the forest,
They do reference it.
he looks at the Thanksgiving door and then skips over it to go to the Christmas door.
Oh,
So,
okay.
Yeah.
All
but
right.
it's
But because it's Halloween and into Christmas, like you can watch it at Thanksgiving. It's like
Yeah.
like
You could
the halfway
watch it.
point.
It's the
Yeah,
halfway
exactly.
point, right? Yeah, no, absolutely. No, that's interesting. So his next one, and before we get to his next one, because I think his next one actually also propelled him pretty high because of how popular that movie became. But before that, so in 94, he did Black Beauty. In 95, he did Dolores Claiborne.
Oh right, I forgot about that. That's a great
Yeah,
movie, too.
Dead Presidents, To Die For. And then in 96, he did Mission Impossible, which we just talked about. He did The Frighteners, Extreme Measures, and Mars Attacks. I don't know if you guys ever saw Mars
yeah.
Attacks.
Yes,
Attacks.
what a ridiculous movie.
It is a
So good.
stupid movie with so many.
Stupidly awesome.
That's what it is. It's stupidly awesome, but it was so many damn stars in there. I mean, there was
The
some
cast
top
is ridiculous.
A-list characters in there, and it was crazy. But
It's funny. It's one of those movies where I don't really remember the music. I remember the movie because of how ridiculous
exactly,
it is.
exactly.
But it's one of those you don't remember the music.
Exactly. But then his next one, which of course wasn't with Tim Burton, Men in Black, which he did the soundtrack and the score. It got nominated for the 70th Academy Awards for Best Original Musical or Comedy Score, and for the 40th Grammy Awards for Best Instrumental Composition written for a motion picture or television. By the way, did I mention that this man he's been nominated, I think, for an Oscar once.
Oh,
And-
that's blasphemy.
Yeah, he's won a ton of Grammys.
Oh, that's what I was going to say. Okay.
Yeah,
I knew
but
he won
he
a bunch of awards, but I couldn't remember.
actually
the
he won
Oscars.
some Grammys. Hold on. There's what's the other one? There's one where he got nominated 25 times and I think he won 25 times, and I forgot what that is, and I apologize for anybody out there. If you guys know, you
There's
let us know. But
Tonys, Emmys, Grammys, Oscars.
it was one of those
Is it
award it's
BMI
one
Film and Television Awards. He's got 24.
yeah, that's it.
Oh, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and he got nominated 24 times, right? Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he won all of them, which is crazy. But do you know that he does not like getting awards?
At a
All
certain
his awards
point.
are, oh, he says all his awards are at his mother's house. Like
Oh wow.
he says he would probably dread if he ever won an Academy Award. Because I guess, I don't know. I guess he's not that type of person. I think he's more of a, let me create and just leave me the fuck alone. So
Yeah, he's just happy making this stuff. He doesn't want to necessarily have the credit, you know?
yeah, so Men in Black. Do you know how he got that gig?
Mm-mm.
Couldn't tell you.
So he was around the studio, and Vincent D'Onofrio, who was in his Edgar
Oh.
I guess makeup, somehow they were talking outside, and he's like, what? And he is like, what movie are you doing? And he's like, oh, we're doing this movie over here. And he goes, that's interesting. So he walked into the set just to see what was going on, and because he thought it was so interesting, and he left. And then a few weeks later, it was like, hey man, you got the gig for Men in Black. And he goes, how? All I did was walk on the set just to see what was going on.
That's funny.
So because he showed up and I guess thought that the movie looked cool or something like that, I guess what's his name? Barry Seinfeld or something like that? The guy who actually did Men in Black. I think it's Barry Seinfeld or something like that. Just I guess decided to grab him, which I think is cool. But we were talking about how you was I think Jorge, you were saying how Men in Black does not have his signature sound.
Yeah, like I mean, I wouldn't picture the Men in Black theme or as that being Danny Elfman. At least at the time, like I don't think I put the two together.
No, I always
like I said,
thought,
I think there's like a quirkiness that came in afterwards, and I realized, oh yeah, like that's totally him. But then,
yeah,
like growing up with it and watching it,
I always
would have
thought it
never-
sounded very very Danny Elfman, and I almost had a Tim Burtonish kind of feel to it too, because it had
I could see it.
like if you watch the movie, you're like, well, yeah, I could kind of see that Tim Burton. Like I could have confused that Tim Burton did this movie, but unfortunately, this was the only good Men in Black movie. I mean, the second was okay, but International, well, that left a lot, and there's a whole story behind that. But yeah, but I'll put it on. I mean, I think it always sounds pretty cool. So like those little those little themes there at the
It's
end.
definitely Elfman, but you can tell that again, he refined it for this movie.
Correct.
He knew not to lean into the whimsical. It sounds like spy, techie type of sound.
He has a bass guitar in there, which or is it a bass guitar that I heard in there? That
Yeah,
he
it
has?
sounded like-
There's a
like a
bass line
bass.
in there.
Yeah. So I like the fact that he does use also modern instruments in order to, try to achieve what he's trying to achieve. But yeah, it sounds pretty cool. I always like that one. And that theme pretty much carried itself throughout all the Men in Black movies and even the Men in Black cartoon, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Same thing with actually, I forgot to mention that, but his Batman theme,
Oh
he
yeah,
wrote the theme
animated series.
to the animated series, which is very close to the Batman '89. It's not an exact copy, but it's still
but
all
it's funny.
there.
It's
Very
really
versatile.
iconic and it's very memorable. And it's like, wow, how can you get two memorable theme songs from the same person for the same character in two different mediums?
Oh, I remember when I
it's
first
almost
saw.
Yeah,
unheard
because the
of.
cartoon is iconic.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, till this day, man. I mean, it's
Yeah.
freaking phenomenal. And I
Yeah.
remember I grew up with like the Super Friends,
Yeah.
which had the shittiest Batman in there. Right, because it's like, it's like, hey, Robin, my little pal and stuff like. I hated I mean, I loved the Super Friends when it first came out. I saw the Super Friends not so long ago, like the first episode. I was like, I can't believe I used to like this shit. But
God.
but the Batman animated series, I mean, to this day, I'll still watch the first, especially I think it was the second or third episode, which was had Mr. Freeze. And it's still
Yeah.
probably considered still the best episode out of the whole series.
Yeah.
But when I remember seeing it for the first time, I said, man, that sounds a lot like the movie. And then
Yeah.
all of a sudden it said, Danny Elfman for the music. I was like, well, holy shit, they got the same guy,
Mhm.
which
That
is
makes
pretty
sense.
cool. So,
Yeah, it's funny, like hearing the MIB theme again now. Like I said, I think at the time, because I was focusing more on like the spy aspect of the theme.
right.
Yeah.
Like watching when I was younger, I was like, oh, like just whatever composer doing like a another spy movie type thing. And then it's like now I hear it again as I'm older, and it's like, oh yeah, like there's definitely like those lines in the background that are like,
Yeah,
like I said,
I
there's that quirkiness enough that comes in, and you're like, yep,
That's him. Exactly.
I mean, I can tell you from
So,
a marketing perspective, they definitely were leaning on Jones and Will Smith. Like they were the faces of this.
Oh
Like
yeah,
usually
yeah.
you'll do the director, you'll do the I think this one they were like, just show these two guys, just show these two guys. So I think that might have overshadowed Elfman's involvement, like from a marketing perspective. I mean, listen, I was also a kid, so it wasn't like I was looking out for that, but
right.
I knew when he was in Nightmare Before Christmas. I knew when he was in Edward Scissorhands.
Yeah.
So it's funny how with those projects he was just as important as the director or any actor involved. In this one, I feel like this is a blockbuster movie. It's
Right.
so the stars are what's going to sell the tickets. But yeah, I mean, now that I heard the music, it's very Elfman. Now I cannot unhear it.
No, exactly.
yeah. I think, like you
And-
said, everybody focused on Will Smith with this one, especially with his, Men in Black song. So
Yeah.
So, and I think that's exactly what I was gonna say. I think it got overshadowed because Will Smith decided to do a rap song out of it,
mhm.
and that became so damn popular that Danny Elfman kind of took, of course, a back seat to this whole thing because it's Will Smith, of course.
Yeah.
And I think the chemistry between Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones was just, I mean, to put those two people, like if somebody told me, hey, I'm going to put Tommy Lee Jones and Will Smith together, you're like, how the hell is that going to work? And it freaking worked fantastic for that film.
Yeah.
All right. So our next one, which is, of course, this movie became gigantic. I mean, this thing was just huge when it first came out. This was, I would say, if I had to compare this movie in his career to movies that actually, were up there, Batman was first, and then this one was second.
Yeah.
In terms of probably revenue, in terms of the hype and all that stuff. So Spider-Man, which was done by Sam Raimi, man, that was an incredible. But you know what? I don't know if every time I listen to it, I think it's great, but it doesn't have. It's like we were talking about. It doesn't have his signature style. It's a
I
good
mean,
theme.
I think that's a good thing. I think he found, because remember, imagine trying to put a Batman style theme to Spider-Man. It's not the same because it's not Tim Burton. That's the one element that's not there. It's not like
Right.
Gothic. You know, but honestly, this is when it comes to like superhero themes across Marvel and DC.
Right.
This to me is top 5 within top 5 for sure. The Spider-Man theme. I think this is another. I mean, obviously, Batman came out like a couple years after I was born, but it still was part of me as a little kid. But this was probably like more in line with like a theme that I grew up with, where like, because this came out when I was like in high school or whatever, and that's it. Like, this is the Spider-Man theme. Besides like the animated series when I used to
Right.
watch that, but when I hear this, it's like, oh, that is Spider-Man. Like. And I can't even tell you. I don't even remember the theme. Nothing against Andrew Garfield or Tom Holland. Don't know what the theme sounds like. And I've seen those movies a bunch of times.
Right.
But Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, I know that theme every single time.
All right, so let's listen to Spider-Man because I definitely got to hear what you're talking about. So I understand what you're saying. I just never saw it as something that had like an iconic sound the way Superman and Batman has. Maybe it's me. I still
think
like
it's
it. Don't
maybe
get
it's
me
a
wrong.
modern version of like those themes, but I mean, if you listen to it, even he's very smart, and I don't know if I'm overthinking on it, but it has a tempo of a waltz, so it's very 1 2 3 1 2 3, which has like a swing sound
Okay.
to it, which Spider-Man swings back and forth. I don't know if I'm overthinking it, but that's what I'm correlating with the theme of like the character with like the theme of the music. It has like this like rocking back and forth motion,
Right.
which to me it's relating to him swinging from building to building or whatever it is. But yeah, I mean, to me, it just it's a theme that I instantly recognize and is what I just like how Superman has his iconic theme. Danny Elfman did the Batman theme. To me, this is a Spider-Man theme, and I haven't heard anything
Huh.
in my opinion, that has topped this theme for this specific character.
It's so interesting how you said that. Now I look at it in a different way.
Yeah.
The fact that you said that it sounds like a waltz.
Yeah.
Which is back and like you said, back and forth, and
Mhm.
and then of course he's swinging through. Damn.
Yeah, I think he's definitely alluding to a lot of those things. I mean, like I said, there's definitely a lot of those elements, right? With his, it's very like erratic, kind of like some of these other themes, right? A lot of similar like background sounds or like melodies and instruments. Um, there's so much talking about other themes. I don't know. I'm kind of with Rob on this one where I don't know. It's one of those themes where I would say, oh yeah, totally Spider-Man. Like this is it, you know. Um, like there's something about the Batman theme that
It just
No,
screams at you.
yeah,
yeah,
like they just like
it's
when it
not
comes in, it's like
as
that's
iconic.
definitely Batman. Like
Yeah.
Right.
you know, like this theme, I definitely like I said, you feel that swing, right? You feel like that waltz. At least whatever the three feel that you get, and I think there's definitely a lot of like I said, those Elfman characteristics that come out, so you know it's an
Mhm.
Elfman theme. I just don't know if for me it's like, oh, this screams Spider-Man per se. It definitely screams
Right.
Elfman, but I don't know if it screams Spider-Man.
To me,
I mean,
Spider-Man is still
yeah.
screams, remember the what is it, the 70s cartoon Spider-Man?
Spider-Man,
Spider
Spider-Man.
that to me is still the
Yeah.
Spider-Man song. As a matter of fact, when this movie came out, I forgot what band, some band came out that did a version of that,
That's funny.
and it was really popular in the on the radio. But that screams to me Spider-Man. I don't know what it is. It's just I don't get me wrong. If I listen to it, if somebody puts it on, I will automatically go, "Oh, that's Spider-Man." But it's like I said before, it's not like I guess it's because when you hear Superman's theme from John Williams, it sounds bigger than life. It
Well,
sounds heroic. It sounds, it gives Superman that, wow, you are like this world savior. When you hear Batman, you hear the heroic part of it, but also more in the darker, he's more of the darker hero, but still more heroic. There's just something about it that doesn't scream hero. And I don't know, maybe I'm wrong.
I feel
well,
like
I
this theme
mean,
could apply to a lot of different things.
yeah, I mean, I definitely think like you can't put the same approach to the Superman theme to Spider-Man because different powers, different
Of
capabilities, different
course.
character. And then Batman, obviously dark parents. Well, his uncle is dead. But anyway, his parents are dead. He's a millionaire, but now he fights
Dude,
crime at
all
night.
these superheroes have
Yeah,
somebody dead in their family. Come on.
yeah, that's true. I don't know. It's I think yeah, I mean, obviously like that Spider-Man trilogy is just iconic. So I think it's just hand in hand with the movie to me
Yeah,
that
it
like
is.
it fits very well. Is it as iconic as the Batman like Superman theme? I think for its time and for the generation that grew up with it, I think they look at it that way. I think those
Okay.
people might look at it that way who probably maybe that was their first big introduction to a superhero. Obviously, like I've seen a bunch of movies before this, so we've probably all seen a bunch of movies. But if this was like a kid's first introduction, like this was his Batman 1989, I think in today's time he would probably feel that that's the lens I'm looking at it.
Hmm.
But yeah, it is interesting to compare it to his Batman thing because now he's done two superheroes. But actually, he did a few others.
Three.
But yeah, he did Incredible Hulk, or Hulk, I should say, with the Ang Lee, which, funny enough, sounds very similar to Spider Man.
Yes.
Very similar
He also did the
tones.
Avengers. Which one was it?
Age of Ultron.
Age of Ultron. So he's
Yeah,
done quite a few superhero movies. He did
yeah,
Darkman, which was like one of the first superhero movies out there, even though
yeah.
I don't know if you guys have read much about this, but I remember seeing something and reading a little bit about how Marvel movies, like the movies themselves, are incredible, right? They're all really like they're done really well, but there's not a theme that really stands out for characters. Like there's not really like a Captain America
Well,
theme. There's not really like an Iron Man theme. Like I mean, like there are, but or like there is, but there isn't.
well, I think DC has more iconic themes than Marvel does.
yes.
At least in the universe. I mean, the Avengers theme is probably going to be the most popular one.
I was just gonna say that the Avengers
Um,
theme you definitely will recognize, and I think Iron Man, but after that,
There's
yeah,
not otherwise like not much, or
no.
no,
if any,
yeah,
besides
and,
those
and
two.
that's what I'm saying. Like, and then when you start looking at like this Spider-Man, or if you start looking at like the individual solo projects of DC, you can probably cherry like you can handpick. Like I know the Wonder Woman theme song from Hans Zimmer. I know the Man of Steel song by Hans Zimmer. I know the John Williams song by Superman. I know the Batman from Danny Elfman. There's just a lot. Yeah, there's a lot of more singular, iconic ones. But yeah, Marvel, it's
Well, Black Panther also had because it
Black
has a lot
Panther.
was very
Yeah,
unique in itself
Yeah,
because
yeah,
of
that's a good one.
right.
yeah,
But it's not something that you could hum. So I think what makes something very iconic and timeless is if you could hum the theme, then and it stays in your mind. So I could hear Black Panther's, theme and I'll go, "Oh, that's Black Panther." But if you tell me to hum it for you, I wouldn't even know where to go,
Yeah, same.
yeah.
I couldn't.
That's
which
true.
is kind of crazy. So before I get into the next one, I forgot to mention that after Men in Black, he did Flubber. I don't know if you guys remember
Oh my
Flubber.
gosh, I forgot about Flubber.
with what is it?
Holy jeez.
With
Yep,
Robin
Rob
Williams.
Williams.
Yeah,
Yep.
He was great on that. He also did Goodwill Hunting
with Robin Williams.
with Robin Williams.
Yep.
He also did A Simple Plan, A Civil Action,
Yeah,
Instinct, Anywhere But Here, and he also did in 1990 did Sleepy Hollow, which I
yeah.
always
Such a
enjoyed
good
that
one.
movie. That
So
movie
good.
that movie's
Yeah,
very underrated. It didn't do as
yeah,
well as it should have, but that movie's very, very underrated. And at the
yeah,
time, I believe it's funny when it came out. I remember that when I moved back to New York, I moved to Austining, New York, which is right next to Sleepy
Hey, it's
Hollow.
my hometown.
Yeah, so and I would go during Halloween to watch the Headless Horseman ride, which was interesting also.
Oh,
So
so fun.
yeah, so I
yeah,
used to always like think of, this movie when I used to go there. So but then right before Spider-Man, he also did in 2000 he did The Family Man, Proof of Life, and he also did Planet of the Apes,
yeah,
which was another Tim Burton movie. Wasn't
yeah.
very popular as the other
Mm-mm.
Planet of the Apes that came out, but I will say this, you guys know who Rick Baker is, right? The makeup artist,
Oh
very
yeah, yeah,
famous makeup artist that, he's like
Mm.
probably the most iconic makeup artist in the world. He did uh Werewolf in London, he did Werewolf.
Yes.
He's done, as a matter of fact, he did Men in Black. So he also did Planet of the Apes, which was, I think the makeup was phenomenal.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, it wasn't like the best movie there was. And then he did Spider-Man. After Spider-Man, he did Men in Black 2, Red Dragon, Chicago, Stars, Hulk, as you said, Big Fish, which is also a great movie. That was another Tim Burton movie, if I'm not mistaken. Big Fish. He also did Spider-Man 2, and then he did Chocolate and Chocolate Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, which was basically Willy Wonka.
Yeah.
So this was a remake of the original, which was what with Gene
Wilder.
Gene Wilder.
Yeah.
So his take on it was actually very interesting, I think, too, because he definitely put the Danny Elfman spin on this. So I'll put that on. Like just Wonka's Welcome Song is kind of interesting.
Good example. Yeah.
Yeah.
Willy Wonka, the amazing chocolatier. Willy Wonka, everybody give a cheer. He's modest, clever, and so smart he barely can restrain it. With so much generosity, there is no way to contain it. To contain it, to contain, to contain, to contain. Oh,
Oh, I can't believe I used that as my wedding song.
Did you?
No, I didn't.
I was gonna go, wow, man.
Oh my God.
That's very romantic.
Yeah.
The one thing I did forget to mention is that besides Danny Elfman and Tim Burton actually collaborating a lot, he also collaborated a lot with Johnny Depp, and I mean a lot of movies with Johnny Depp. So that trio right there of actor, director, and composer, they've done some very interesting work.
Yeah.
What did you guys think of the Willy Wonka movie? I saw it for the first time probably a few weeks ago because I was like, I have never seen this movie. I have to see it. And I was kind of left with a
Yeah, I didn't like it. I'm gonna be honest. Just trying to straight up. I did. I remember watching it. I think I went into theaters to watch it, and I was like, "Why did I watch this?"
I think on paper it was a really good idea, and I think individually there's a lot of like good things about it, like cinematography and the music is out there. But yeah, I mean, if you're comparing it to the original is very classic. It has like some like dark dramatic elements to it. I think this one tried to push it a little bit more towards the opposite end. And if you were going in thinking you were getting like a remake of the original, you were going to be disappointed. But if you were going in thinking, oh, let me see Tim Burton's, quirky take and, something completely different, then you'll be like, oh, okay, cool. Like, I'll probably enjoy this movie. But I think some people, the only thing you had to compare it to was the original, and it's nothing like the original. For better,
and
it definitely
has a Tim Burton what is this signature style to it.
Yeah.
I think this was a good precursor to what we're going to talk about next, which is Alice in Wonderland. I think this was like this almost feels like a test movie for
Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah.
It's like this song reminds me a lot of like going back to like Pee-wee and like Beetlejuice, though, right? It's like he's kind of going back to he's going back to his roots a little bit with like the quirky, right, like circusy type theme, because it's like, oh, like once again we got this showman character who's like, come into my factory, like try all these different candies and whatnot, and like you have to get this golden ticket to come in. And so like I definitely got their quirkiness, and I understood why they did it. I think it was a little too much for me, but I think, like I said, I think he's trying to go back to his roots a little bit and say, all right, like this is my character that I'm working with, right? This, like I said, showman type. Let's go back to being really weird and go back to the roots.
I think what really turned me off about this movie was Johnny Depp's portrayal of Wonka. Because I don't know, like I don't remember the Gene Wilder version at all. And
it's so good.
Yeah, I remember.
And I don't know if he portrays that character the same way. or if it's two
That's
completely
very
different.
different.
It's
Very,
very
very
different.
different.
Yeah, like the way he portrayed Wonka was, and you know what? There's a new one coming out with Timothy Chalamet,
Yeah.
and I'll be very interested to see how he portrays that one. So before that comes out, I'm probably going to watch both movies so then I could have a comparison to this movie, which probably is the wrong thing to do.
I feel like all three are going to be completely different takes. I don't think
Yeah.
they're going to be
Because
similar.
isn't this also when he's younger too?
It is.
The one,
And
right,
this
the
one is
version that
kind of-
Timothée Chalamet is playing.
Yeah, like
Like a
this is
younger-
like a prequel kind
Yeah.
of.
So
but-
Timothy Chalamet is like Chalamet, whatever. That's the prequel. Then the Tim Burton is the middle, and then the Gene Wilder is the
Yeah. essentially, I think that's what it is.
Okay,
If you're putting in
that's
timeline.
crazy.
Yeah.
So
But yeah.
after that, he did Corpse Bride, which was another stop motion animation movie.
Yeah.
That one I don't remember very well.
It was good, but I don't think it's definitely not as iconic as Nightmare Before Christmas. I think that was probably the attempt.
Okay.
But it had a lot of it was very similar. Like I mean, there's even like rumors out there or like theories that like Corpse Bride, Nightmare Before Christmas, and Frankenweenie are all the same characters, but at different points in time.
Like the same universe or the same character?
Same universe and characters.
Oh, really?
That Jack, the main character in Corpse Bride, and then Frankenweenie, they're all the same person, and even the same dog is the same throughout all three characters. But obviously, like each of these movies live in are a different timeline. So, like,
Right.
Scientifically that wouldn't be possible. But I mean, obviously, we're talking about stop motion. We're talking, yeah, So if we're
It's science.
yeah, but I think
okay.
they tried to recreate that, and
Right.
it definitely has its cool moments, but it's not going to be a Nightmare Before Christmas.
I saw
The
it.
bar's
Yeah, it's
too
nowhere
high.
near that. It's charming,
Yeah.
but not. It's I don't know if it's a cult favorite nowadays, but it's not the same as Nightmare Before Christmas. Definitely. So he did that. Then he did in 2006. He did Nacho Libre.
Oh, it's such a good movie.
Speaking of which, I believe in science.
Yeah.
And he did Charlotte's Web. In 2007, he did Meet the Robinsons, which I actually liked that movie. I thought it was funny. It's an animated movie. And then he did The Kingdom, which I didn't know that he was the one who did The Kingdom, but I like that movie a lot. Have you guys seen that with Jamie Foxx?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that they go to the Middle East and stuff
Mhm.
like that. And then there's another one in 2008. He did Standard Operating Procedure. He did Wanted, which started
Oh yeah.
Angelina Jolie. Hellboy 2. He also did Milk. And then he did, of course, in 2009, he did Notorious, Terminator Salvation. Again, a movie that I would have never known that was him who did that soundtrack. Taking Woodstock. We talked about, the Wolfmans, which he did in 2010. And then after that, he did Alice in Wonderland, which was, again, Tim Burton's take on Alice in Wonderland. For me, the Alice in Wonderland theme is probably my favorite out of everything he's ever done. I don't know what it is about that theme, but I just love this theme a lot. And I recall that when I was working in Best Buy, customer comes in and she was, I don't know, she just was talking about something, and then she says that she was going to go to college, and I asked her, "Oh, what are you going to college for?" And she goes, "Film music." And I was like, "Really?" And she goes, "Yeah, I'm going to study film music. I want to do film music." And I was like, "So who's your favorite composer?" And she said, "Danny Elfman." So I took her to the demo room. I said, "You're probably going," so in Best Buy, the Magnolia section, they, especially the design centers, have the same speakers that Abbey Road Studios and Skywalker Sound have. So I told her, "You might want to listen to Danny Elfman in these speakers, because you're probably going to listen to this is how it's going to sound finally live to you." And she listened to it, and I actually put on this soundtrack to her, and she was like, "That's the best I've ever heard his music ever." And I was like, "Yeah, because he's listening it to in headphones probably or something like that, which are the shittiest headphones that Apple will give you." That when your iPhone, I think, came with free headphones, right? Remember there was a time
Yeah.
or something
Oh,
like
yeah,
that.
yeah. Yep.
Yeah, they stopped doing that, so yeah, they will give you those headphones. I was like, I bet you're listening to music in those crappy headphones. So I put them on, and she fell in love with it and stuff like that, and that was it. That was the last time I saw her. But I honestly hope that she just, she really fulfills those dreams, and she says that she would love to meet Danny Elfman one of these days. But this is the actual song that I put on of Alice, and this again, this is very, very Danny Elfman, and it has a lot of what I would call Edward Scissorhands roots to it. So I'll put that on right now. Yeah, I loved it. I don't know.
Yeah,
This is a
that's
really
great.
cool thing to it. I think the violins, I think just the chorus itself is just phenomenal. The movie was received very well. And again, this is another one with Johnny Depp in it, but
Yeah,
the
but they
rating.
made like another one or
They
two
made a
after
second one,
this.
yeah. And the
Yeah,
second one wasn't received very well either. But the theme carried on through the second
yeah,
one too. But
yeah.
and visually it looked great. It was just Tim Burton's take on Alice in Wonderland, which honestly, Alice in Wonderland, the story itself is
That's very Tim Burton-y
it was made
themed.
for him.
Yeah,
Whoever wrote it, I don't know, 1,000 years ago, just said, in the future there's going to be some weird guy that is going to do my movie, this into a movie, and
We got to write the story.
we got to write the story now. But
no, I agree. It's a very polished song, but it's almost like a very polished version of a Danny Elfman song. Like it's very clean. You have all the classical elements of like a Elfman song, but and I love the choice of him using like that choir
mhm,
singing, and it sounds like children.
yes,
Um, it's yeah, it's again very iconic. I think it's I would have never even I don't even know how to begin an Alice in Wonderland theme if I was creating one, and this is the new bar for that. Like
right.
it would be hard to find another theme that sounds like you're traveling into a different realm and with different characters and these larger than life figures, and it sounds like you're going down a rabbit hole with that theme song, literally.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's like I said, funny enough, I saw the movie and I was like, okay, it's I think there's a lot of hit and misses with Tim Burton. And while when I watch his movies, the production design, I would say, of course, the music that he picks, of course, with Danny Elfman or I'm sure he's collaborated with other composers, but there's a signature to him, which
Mhm.
is great. It's just, I think, the execution of the story, which is not probably the best, or maybe not the best way to go about it. I could be wrong, but there's just certain movies that are just fucking great. They're just like, wow, that blew me away. While others, you're like, and I guess I'm holding him to such a high pedestal that
Yeah,
sometimes when his stuff is not what I think it is, sometimes it's a little disappointing. But sometimes the music saves it, and I think
yeah,
that's what this movie does to me is that while it's probably not the best, retelling of the story or whatever it is, but the music still, sucks me into it. And I think a lot of people, I think the reason a lot of people didn't like this movie. So I know that you guys have known that Disney has been on a kick to make all these especially the classic animated movies into live action
action,
right?
Yeah.
And some of them have succeeded very well. I think what people remembered of the Alice in Wonderland cartoon, and when they saw this, especially Johnny Depp's
the Mad Hatter
version of the Mad Hatter, completely different than the cartoon itself. And I think that's what threw people off. I know it threw me off because I was hoping to get the Mad Hatter from the cartoon, not this version. And part of me thinks that that's a Johnny Depp choice.
It's choice, yeah.
And it got nominated for a Golden Globe for Best Original Score and for the 53rd Grammy Award for Best Score Soundtrack Album for a motion picture, television, or other visual media. Didn't win, but got nominated. After that, I mean, honestly, and we covered some of like the best things that he's had, and we're going to cover one more before we call it a night. But I mean, his body of work is still crazy. And I'll just briefly, I mean, Real Steel. Have you guys seen Real Steel with
Yeah, that was good. Hugh
I
Jackman.
love that movie, man.
It's really good.
It had a feel good movie just like Rocky did. It was basically Rocky. I mean, but with a robot. He also did Scrooge, which I always like that.
Yes. Yeah, it's fun.
Dark Shadows, Men in Black 3, Frankenweenie, Silver Linings Playbook. And I mentioned this because Danny Elfman himself has said that he does not like doing romantic comedies or romantic movies, period. He just not his thing. But he did this movie because it was quirky enough where he goes, all right, I'll tackle this movie and I'll do this movie. And
it's a really good movie.
Yeah, and it's a good movie. So Oz the Great and Powerful, American Hustle, Mr. Peabody and Sherman, The Unknown Known, Big Eyes, The End, 50 Shades of Grey.
Oh yeah, he did the whole trilogy for that one. I saw that one.
Random.
Yeah, very random. Of course, we just mentioned Avengers: Age of Ultron. He did Goosebumps, Alice Through the Looking Glass, which is the second version of Alice in Wonderland. The Girl on the Train, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah,
he did do that with Sam Raimi. And of course, he's going to do Beetlejuice 2. But one of his biggest soundtracks that he will always be remembered for is something that came out on TV. And believe it or not, so he came up with this entire soundtrack driving. He was driving and it just came up with it. And it is such a famous theme that, we all know it. It's been around now for what, over 30 years?
Yeah. I think it's the longest running TV show.
Yeah. So it is a Simpsons TV show, and he is the originator of the Simpsons theme song. Do you know that when he presented this to the executives, they heard it one time and they go, yep, that's it. Go with it. He didn't have to refine nothing.
That's funny.
That's
Thank God he
didn't.
But when you listen to that, I don't know if you guys noticed, when you listen to that, there are so many layers of instruments in there, which is insane.
But you hear it in his other themes too, though.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember.
And this
like
is so
the
early
order
on
of
in his
things. 'Cause
career.
when did Simpsons start again? It was 80s. Was it late 80s?
I think it was
Was
late
it early
80s. It's late 80s or early 90s. I don't think it was before that.
That's a good
I don't think
question.
so either. I think
Because if it's been
it's
around for
definitely
over
gonna be like
30
probably like
years,
89 if anything.
yeah, it's definitely like very late 80s, no earlier than early 90s. Or later than early 90s. But yeah, it's just that's a very I don't know, it just again, like you hear it and you're like, yeah, Simpsons, like next. It's
Right.
like
But I mean, it's funny because like I think what was it with like when we heard like Men in Black again, I was like, oh yeah, like there's a lot of those type of things that you can hear, like those elements. Like I said, that makes it very Danny Elfman.
Right.
Even though it sounds a little more spy-ish, it's like, oh wait, but there's still like those hints, and I feel like a lot of the stuff derives from Simpsons, or at least
Yeah.
like Pee Wee, Beetlejuice, and Simpsons, like these three, and then like everything else kind of just
Yeah.
gets pulled out from there.
Yeah. No,
yeah, because
absolutely.
I'm not getting any like gothic horror from this one. This is very like playful. It has like it even has like those cartoony sounds to them that
Yeah.
they used to use like back in the old day to like do like cartoony sound effects like the
The
blocks
Looney
or something
Tunes
like
and
that.
stuff like that.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
sounds like an orchestrated version of that.
Oh my
yeah.
God. What did they used to call that when it was there's a name for whenever whenever you're doing something where the music is following the motion of the character.
That's what it sounds like. Whatever that's called, that's what this theme song sounds like. It sounds like this character.
Man,
And
there
that's the thing,
is
like that's what's happening in the opening theme song. Like all these characters are moving. They're, the nuclear thing is jumping from the table to one thing, and then they're driving
Right.
in the car, and they're, Lisa's playing the saxophone, and Bart's on his skateboard. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah.
Like it reminds me of like that old school things they used to do, where like the music was the action that was being shown on the
and
screen.
there is a name to it, and I'm trying to figure it out because it's actually, I mean, the Looney Tune cartoons, Warner Brothers made that very famous with a lot of the because it described, or at least kind of like, described the motion of the characters. And one of us has to look that up, because if not, I'm not going to go to sleep.
That's what I'm trying to do. I'm like, what
Is it called
this?
I
mean, I know
anapathetic anapath I don't know. It's
No.
called let me see.
like I know the term for when a character
Mickey
hears the
Mousing?
music.
Is that what it's called?
Huh?
Mickey Mousing.
I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
I think that's
Yeah.
what it is.
It's synchronized mirrored parallel scoring. That's basically what it is.
They call it Mickey Mouse. Okay, then it was probably Disney, but I know that Warner Brothers did it. I know everybody with cartoons used to do that. And that's exactly what you're talking about, is Mickey Mousing the entire intro to the Simpsons. That's exactly what he's doing. He's just kind of describing what's going on. So, which is pretty cool. But yeah, so I mean, we just covered a lot of Danny Elfman's achievements. And just so you guys know, so there are albums out there that include themes or music written by Elfman where he did not compose the full score. So Bachelor Party, which I think started Tom Hanks, has two songs, Bachelor Party and Something Isn't Right with Oingo Boingo, Weird Science. He also had like Pure Luck, Tales from the Crypt, Army of Darkness, Psycho, which intro bass themes by Bernard Herrmann, but for some reason, I guess he's getting credited with that. Spy Kids. Another one is Batman the Animated Series, of course. Scream 2, Before I Wake, When We Rise. You guys ever saw a movie called Nine?
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
It's an animated cartoon, very dark.
Well,
so
a quick story about that. That was actually made by a person who made it as a short film. Tim Burton saw it and then decided to make it a feature film. So
I heard something about that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really cool animated movie. I think it's really good.
It's very, very dark. It didn't make
post-apocalyptic.
Yeah, it didn't make
characters.
I would say money out of it, which I think they were hoping for that, but I appreciate what it, at least the story and And especially for the time when it came out, it was all in 3D animation, and it actually looked pretty good for that time.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so that's our tribute to I would say Danny Elfman, a great composer and somebody I think we all grew up with. The man has made amazing music, still making amazing music. And I look forward to a lot. He's actually doing a lot of concerts now too. So I just finished seeing John Williams, which was one of my bucket list things.
That's so cool.
To do.
Yeah.
And I said, I have to see this man because this man is in his 90s?
Yeah.
I have to see him before he, I wish he lives forever, but he's getting up there in age. So I'm like, I have to see him live in concert at least one time. So I went ahead and saw him, and great experience. There is another one coming out in February in Radio City Music Hall.
Ooh, that's good.
And I would love to see it there because where I saw it, it was like in an amphitheater type of thing. So the music wasn't as grand as you normally know that it is. But in Radio City Music Hall, which I'm sure has great acoustics, I would love to go
my
see
birthday
him.
month. I think I'm going to make that a gift to myself.
Well, to add one more thing before we head out, New Jersey Performing Arts Center is going to play Batman 1989 with a live orchestra early next year.
Oh, nice.
So
I think we should all
get
go.
tickets to that.
That'd be really cool.
I'll definitely be going.
When you
I'll
get
give
the
the details.
when you get the tickets, let me know, man, because I'll probably get some too. So, but yeah, so that's our show for that. I want to thank Jorge for coming on. It's always great to have you, and definitely Adam. Thank you so much for coming on. What are you guys working on? You could tell the audience out there what you're working on, so they could probably follow you and see what's going on.
Adam, I know you got some stuff going on, so why don't you go first?
Yeah.
We're in a film festival circuit for some short films that we have circulating right now, and then we're on the tail end of finishing a script for an Edgar Allan Poe biopic feature film. So that's been taking up pretty much all my time.
Dude, so here's what I'm going to say, because we've been covering Danny Elfman. When that gets picked up, you need to say, listen, the soundtrack has to be done by Danny Elfman.
That'd be pretty awesome.
One can dream.
One can dream, right? No, that's pretty cool. How's your you said that you're going through the film festivals. How's your short films doing?
Good. Yeah, we did a Star Wars fan film, which has been getting some really good reception. It played at a Regal Theater, which looked and sounded amazing. We have another one coming up this weekend at a Yonkers Film Festival, and then there's a few that I submitted to for next year. Just trying to get some buzz going for like just a fun fan film project that we did.
Nice, man. That's awesome. Definitely everybody check out Adam's stuff. Where can they find you? I know that you have a website and you have some social media stuff.
Yeah, you can go to gildedharbor.com or follow us at Instagram at Gilded Harbor, or my personal one at ag.cinema.
Awesome. And how about you, Jorge? What do you have going?
Yeah, I have a buddy of mine who created a music company kind of similar to Jingle Punks. I don't know if you've ever heard of them. Essentially, they're just like an online database that, let's say you need, ESPN is like, hey, I need music for a segment. Like they say, oh, here's our artist. They make this style that you're looking for. Choose someone and pick it. A buddy made a company called Made by Us, which is very similar. However, the shares in terms of like payment and stuff are definitely much more artist friendly, and so we have some opportunities that we've been kind of working on with these type of companies. So I'm just trying to go ahead and get some loops created or get some songs created for them and just see what we get picked up on. So right now I'm just kind of playing around with some ideas and collaborating with other artists just to see what opportunities we get in terms of getting something lined out on something like ESPN, or I think we have something coming up. Like there's like a country rock theme that we're working on for a certain network. So just depending whatever is needed, I go ahead and just make loops and just send it out and hope that they get picked up.
Fantastic, man. That's awesome. And me, I do absolutely nothing. So I just want everybody out there. No, actually, you can find me here always at Fantasy Picks Movie Edition, where We actually do also film reviews on failed movies that failed at the box office or were critics. And of course, we try to play armchair filmmakers and try to see how we would have made it better by either changing the cast or changing the story or something like that. And we have fun with that kind of stuff. We also do a top 5 movie draft, and that all depends on actors, directors, movie genres, and things like that. That's another part that we actually like to have fun with. So you can always catch us here. And if you guys have any recommendations out there, or let us know how much you like the show or anything like that, you can always reach us at fantasypicksmovieedition@gmail.com. And we're also on socials. We're on Facebook, on Instagram, TikTok. Have we done anything with TikTok yet?
We're about to.
We're about to. Okay. So yeah, you could catch us on that, and and definitely let us know and subscribe to our podcast, and you could hear us, as much as you like. So I want to thank these guys. I want to thank everybody out there for listening, and hopefully we will see you guys next time. Take care. As a matter of fact, I'm going to pause for a moment because I drank way too much water. So hold on one moment. Sorry.
Gotta get that prostate checked out.
Bring the microphone with you to the bathroom.
That's all right. That's right. Listen, we're on a time crunch.
Yeah.
No breaks here.
No breaks here. What was it? What's that? Like that TikTok theme? It's like, you gotta use the bathroom, pee in yourself, be a man.
Yeah. That's right. Shit your pants. Be a man.
Oh my God.
Boxers or briefs. Hit the pens.
Hit the pens. Oh man, Rob's gonna listen to this and be like, should I keep all this?
Yeah, he's gonna throw it in there just to fuck with us.
Oh my God.